From the shadows of the National Palace.
Enough of the muddy trenches of politics. This is the pigsty, the pigpen of politics with Camerano.
How are you, my dear inhabitants, wallowing in the mud of misinformation and cynicism? How is the start of 2026 treating you? I hope you've properly reheated your leftovers of hypocrisy. Welcome once again to La Pasilga, the pigsty of politics, the corner where our country's public life smells worse than a sock. A policeman in August. We're coming in full force. Happy New Year and Three Kings Day. Although for some, the year started with a hangover that not even a United States Navy 4 could cure. While you were toasting with cheap Santa Claus cider, only the wealthy from the 4D can afford to toast with Moet and Dom Perignon. Uncle Donald, who doesn't even rest to go to the bathroom, gave himself a new toy for his trophy collection, a mustachioed dictator brought straight from Caracas. So hold on tight, because today we're going to break down how the world changed in 2.5 minutes, while in Mexico, we keep pretending to be sovereign, with our tails between our legs. Let's get started. Mr. Trump made a quick stop in Caracas. No, it's not the dirty stuff you're thinking about, just so you know. What a gem. For years, Nicolas Maduro mocked Trump's threats. More than once. We saw him trying to be funny, dancing and shouting nonsense in English that sounded like he was chewing caramel taffy. He felt untouchable, protected by his Cuban Praetorian Guard and by Chavez's little bird. The bird, I mean. Turns out the little bird didn't warn him. The Cubans ended up like a sieve. 32 to be exact, according to official figures. Last Saturday, in an operation that lasted less than a Morena campaign promise, the American Special Forces, also known as Delta Force, made it all the way to the dictator's bedroom. 2.5 minutes, that's all it took the empire to take out the trash. They didn't even give that bastard Maduro time to put on his tricolor pants. From there, the tour was top-notch. Navy helicopter, quick stop in Guantanamo so he could get used to the orange jumpsuit, and then straight to the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. And so he wouldn't feel alone. They took everything with him. And his wife Celia, the first fighter who will now fight, but this time against the bedbugs in the New York jail. Just yesterday, we saw them before Judge Alvin Hellerstein, a 92-year-old who has seen more drug traffickers than the Drug Enforcement Administration. Maduro, really playing the role of circus clown, declared himself a prisoner of war and referred to the Geneva Conventions. Don't mess with me, the guy who starved his own people, tortured opponents, and executed journalists. Now he wants very important person treatment, like he's staying at the Ritz. You really have to be shameless. He's a narco-terrorist with a president's badge, and there he is, sleeping in the same cell where our Mexican kingpins are going to teach him how to play dominoes. And maybe even Valero, for that thing about sticking the stick in the little hole. You know what I mean? Given that situation, the maid scientist came out with her other facts about sovereignty, The script she has saved for any problem, just like the donkey would pull out his little white handkerchief. This fool always comes out with her sovereignty talk. The funniest part isn't what happened in Caracas, but the tantrum they're throwing here. At the heart of the transformation, our brand new boss, Claudia Sheinbaum, went on a marathon of tweets and press statements, from Tlaxcala to Hidalgo. It almost seemed like she was the one who was in jail. God grant us a miracle. Anyway, she came out very dignified to say that Mexico strongly condemns the use of force. What a surprise. She invoked Articles 89 and 40 of the Constitution, as if Trump cared more about our Constitution than his Truth Social account. He says it clearly violates the United Nations. Come on, guys, let's be serious. Now that his buddy's affected, he just keeps talking about the United Nations and Organization of American States, but he sure kept quiet when Maduro stole the elections in 2024. Back then, sovereignty meant letting the butcher of Caracas keep tearing his people apart. Same double standard. Do they defend dictatorships in Cuba and Venezuela? But they get outraged if the northern neighbor tries to clean up the backyard full of lunatics with these bastards? However, not everything is perfect. My pigs, this is the most cynical part. Do you think Trump put the opposition in place? Not at all. Uncle Donald? Is he practical? He cut off the head of the snake and let the rest writhe in his favor. Now Venezuela's president is Delcy Rodriguez, who once carried Maduro's briefcase, and her brother Jorge Rodriguez swore her in. Chavismo remains in the land of arepas, now following Trump's orders. And that's how it is, that Mr. Orange let things slide and took away a whole day from Ms. Rodriguez. Saying exactly the same nonsense as here in Mexico, the lady with the ponytail came out making objections, talking about sovereignty and demanding Maduro's release, who, according to her, at that time she still recognized as the president of Venezuela, and was denouncing the imperialist barbarity of his kidnapping. But her satisfaction and narrative didn't last long. The old lady got slapped so hard it turned her hat upside down. Trump, with that subtlety he's known for, just had to address the media and send a clear and direct message. He told her that if she didn't cooperate, she and her cronies would end up worse than the boss. And boom, as if by magic, and with Delcy's club-wielding diplomacy, who just yesterday was shouting about imperialism and Yankees, suddenly sent a love letter to Washington, asking for cooperation and shared development. Does that sound familiar to you? They fold faster than a basket taco. While all this was happening in Mexico, the ruling party and their little pet cronies kept living in their own bubble. Some alleged Venezuelans protested at the United States Embassy in Mexico. But, oh surprise, to no one's surprise, they turned out to be Morena party members with an Iztapalapa accent. Even more amazing is that they were exposed by real Venezuelans, from those 8 million who fled misery while here, people applauded their social achievements. How embarrassing. Was it really inevitable that Mexico would be brought up in all this mess? That's right. Our country is in the spotlight and on the list, because, keep in mind, Trump doesn't make a move without a plan. He dropped the bomb. He said he'll have to do something about Mexico, because here the candidates are in charge, not the underlings. And well, who can argue with him about that? If the reason for Maduro's capture was narco-terrorism, shouldn't more than one person in the National Palace be buying orange pajamas in their size? This crisis has strained relations with the White House. While Trump justifies the intervention as a fight against drug trafficking and terrorism, rather than for political reasons, Sheinbaum has responded that the same logic cannot be used to threaten sovereignty. The Mexican government clings to an agreement previously signed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, where the first point is mutual respect for national sovereignty. This reveals the fear that Claudia Sheinbaum has regarding the unilateral decisions that Donald Trump might make. Well, she already saw that he can do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, however he wants, ignoring pacts and international agreements. In other words, Ms. Sheinbaum, the lady, is really tough. And the fear isn't about Venezuela. The fear is that they've already seen that Trump doesn't hesitate to violate international law if it gets him votes and internal security. Sovereignty is a very nice concept for morning speeches when facing a guy who doesn't care at all about agreements. Sovereignty becomes just a simple New Year's wish. Sheinbaum says she'll cooperate, but you can tell she's nervous. She knows that if Trump decides to apply his practical judgment at the southern border or in the mountains of Sinaloa, no tweet or constitutional article will stop him. Here's the Patachix version of Benito Juarez, where Minister Benito Hugo Aguilar says we can't tolerate the law of the strongest. Oh, Minister, welcome to reality. In this world, the one with the biggest drones and the biggest balls makes the rules. The United States government's military operation against Nicolas Maduro is questionable and violates international law. But Trump has the legal cover, according to his own country's legislation, which grants him broad powers as commander-in-chief to protect strategic interests, combat threats to national security, and carry out extraterritorial operations without a formal declaration of war. In other words, what is illegal before the world is defensible and acceptable within his own country. It's not something that's surprising at all. The United States often applies its domestic law globally. Is it bad that Trump does this? Is it good? Look, I don't know. I just know that if Donald Trump used that same firm hand here in Mexican territory, we would be much better off than we are now with this shitty government imposed by a bastard named Andres Manuel, kept by his welfare maid Claudia Scheinbaum, with all the risks that this implies, even if it costs us the pride of our paper sovereignty. Because it has become clear to the world that today there is a president who is willing to run over anyone, however he has to, just to impose his power. And that president's name is Donald Trump. But anyway, keep enjoying your new year. Keep believing in the fairy tales of the 4th, because here at La Pasilga, we'll keep wallowing in the truth that nobody wants to say. There you have it, my dear little pigs of politics. We start 2026 with a dictator behind bars, a substitute bent over like a quesadilla, and a Mexican government praying that the blonde guy from New York doesn't turn his gaze too much this way. Happy New Year, and for the Morena mobsters, may the Drug Enforcement Administration catch you after you confess. I'm Che Morano, and this was the Pigsty, the pig pen of politics. Here we keep getting muddied. Goodbye.
Goodbye. This is the Pigsty, the pig pen of politics with Che Morano.